Corey here from Solenoid Studio, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use some very special libraries from Soundiron to get a horror-style industrial ambient sound. This sound is basically inspired by the soundtrack work that Akira Yamaoka did with the Silent Hill series. His work was very influential for composers and gamers alike after the original Silent Hill hit the shelves, and obviously his music was inspired in turn by other industrial artists that came before him. And he and many others used the Distorted Reality series for most of the Silent Hill era of his work. This was a Spectrasonics library released in the late 90s, which is now very rarely available. However, many of its patches can be found in the new Omnisphere 2 library. But as you know, these sounds have been around for a while and they've been used on nearly every soundtrack you've ever heard. So what I'm going to do is show you a new set of sounds you can use to get that same ambient industrial Silent Hill vibe, but with modern sample libraries. This can all be done using libraries from Soundiron. Soundiron is a unique sample provider because during the years the company was active as Tonehammer, and continuing to today, they've always had a knack for outlandish industrial libraries. Needless to say, this resulted in them producing a goldmine of sounds that are very reminiscent of Silent Hill in an uncanny way. This is something close to my heart, and I'm sure close to a lot of gamers and composers' hearts, especially those who've played the Silent Hill series. And I'm happy to show you now how to use Soundiron's libraries to create a unique ambient industrial palette. So here we go. Now first, I'm going to do a quick playthrough of a handful of sounds that capture the Silent Hill atmosphere. Listen with your eyes closed. Here we go. Now, I don't know about you, but personally that gives me goosebumps, in a good way. All of these sounds can be found in the Soundiron catalogue, some of them as they are, out of the box, and some of them I've tweaked a bit. I'm going to show you which libraries these gems can be found in, and give you a few hints on how to tweak some of the patches to find the sweet spots. When you find it, you'd probably be good to do what I did, and save the patch to a dedicated Silent Hill sounds folder. And while you're at it, why not even name the patches something you find fitting in regards to the Silent Hill lore? Like your very own audio Silent Hill paradise. Alright, here we go. I like to call this patch Deep Mist. This particular sound comes from Soundiron's Circle Bells library. This is a library you can find on their site. It's cheap, and it's got some great sounds of some really melodic bells that were struck with mallets, and a lot of other sound design effects. This comes from a very particular setting in the ambient patch called DRes 7. So if you find that one, and if you like the sound as it is, great. But if you want to, you can tweak it a bit, change the resonance, change the attack, little things like that, and you'll get a really nice atmospheric mist-like sound. I call this preset Ghost Burst. Now, this sound comes from a library in Soundine's catalogue called Holy Ambiences. It's a dirt cheap little library that was recorded using sound design techniques. And as you can see, I've got the attack and morph and release set to a specific setting to get that sound. There's a few patches in Holy Ambiences that have different ways of morphing the sound. But if you go through the patches, find one that you like and basically set the settings to the same as I have here, you get a different sound for each patch. But basically the idea is it's got a really kind of earthy, organic, but also nasty kind of horror bursting tone to it, which I think is awesome. This patch I like to call Mall Lurkers. Now this sound can be found in the Bode Bucket Bass library. Again, this is a cheap library that's a very experimental Bode bass bucket. It's basically a bass made out of, I think, twine string and a plastic bucket. And it's got a really beefy tone to it. This can be found under the more creative effects section of the library. There's a few patches in there. But there's a specific patch that uses a stuttering effect on the grinding of the bow against the string. When you find that patch, basically set it up the same way you see here, and you'll have that sound. This patch is called Slow Dive. And this patch comes from a library from Soundine called Bamboo Stick Ensemble. And this can be found in the, again, ambient section of the library. And it's a great sound for when there's impending doom, or if there's, monsters lurking, or any kind of horror thing like that that requires a kind of a falling down, kind of a spiral thing. And it's a great sound for horror soundtracks, especially for Silent Hill style stuff. Now, anyone who's a fan of the Silent Hill 3 game, especially the unofficial extended soundtrack, will love this next patch. It's basically Train. Now that patch is pretty much what it is. It's a recording of a lonely train ride, and that can be found on Soundine's Subways and Streetcars effects library. It's a very specific sound effects library that's targeted more for sound design and sound effects composers. But it's great for horror stuff because of the industrial kind of metal clanky tone that it has. And this next patch I've appropriately named Laura. Now this very unique and very emotional patch and sound can be found in the Mercury Elements library, which is basically the watered down version of the Mercury Boy Choir library that can be found in Soundine's catalogue. And it has a brilliant set of ambient effects. As you can see, the patch I'm using there is Mercurant's Mercuriance 11. Mercuriance. And that can be found in, again, the ambient side of the library. There's a lot of these. I think there's 20 or 30 different ones, but 11 specifically has that kind of beautiful, ghostly, echoing tone. And you can fix that up to the same parameters that I have on the screen here, so you get exactly that sound, and it's beautiful. And this is one of my personal favorite melodic patches. It's called Glass Piano. Now that sound can basically be found as is in the Glass Beach sound design library. Again, a very cheap library. It's good to set it to the settings I've got here on the screen because it has a lot of echo, a lot of delay, a lot of release. So when you trim it down, you get this nice, defined kind of piano sound. It sounds like it's come from the ether. It's a really, really great sound if you want to do kind of more melodic, tonal lead parts. And that being said, I'm going to move on to some percussion tracks because percussion is a massive part of industrial music, especially when it comes to horror music. Anyone who's heard the original Silent Hill soundtrack will know that industrial percussion can be frightening to listen to, but it's for that reason it's very effective in horror music. So I'm going to show you a few percussion patches that you can find in Soundiron's catalogue that are brilliant for this purpose. This patch is called Bunker Metal Smash. Now this sound can be found in the percussion section of the SICK 2 library. Now the SICK series has, so far, at the time of this recording, 5 volumes. This is in the second volume, and it basically has percussive recordings of stomping and bashing metal in a ship and in old Fallout war bunker. And this is a great patch for that sort of thing because the sound's spread all across the keys and you can go nuts with it. So this is great for those really fast-paced, kind of drilling, percussive sound, like you're being chased by an enemy. Okay, on to the next one. This patch is called Bom Pump. I'm not quite sure what the STR stands for, I've forgotten, but it is what it is. It can be found in the Rust 3 library, which is the last Rust library that was made in the series, and it's an overwhelmingly powerful sound, especially when you crank it up a bit and put some compression on it. It's great for very foreboding scenes in horror, and especially in games where there's something just lurking around the corner. It reminds me a bit of Silent Hill 2 with Pyramid Head, personally. But on to the next one. This patch I like to call Death Walk. Now this sound can be found in Soundiron's Anti-Drum 3, and it's basically a patch that comes from the nail gun sound. Obviously you can see here it's nail gun 9, so search through the library and find the patch that's in and set it to 9 and go nuts. It's got a really stomping feel to it, and it's great for, again, foreboding stuff, but also for more powerful driving stuff in an action scene. And yeah, it's just great for that sort of thing. Now, I could pretty much go on forever with these patches. I have a dedicated folder for all of these patches. There's probably 200 different patches, and all of them sound like they would fit perfectly in an industrial ambient soundtrack that sounds a lot like Silent Hill. And also sounds, you get a few of the sounds in there are kind of reminiscent of some of Nine Inch Nails' earlier stuff. A few sounds in there are reminiscent of pianos and organs. One of the instruments that I have included in that folder is Emotional Piano by Soundyne, because the Emotional Piano has a really wounded, dark tone to it due to it being piano. I think it's made of walnut. It's a Kawai grand piano. And that sounds great for ambient industrial stuff, because you want that kind of wounded tone when you're making industrial stuff, because industrial music is very emotive in a very dark and kind of hypnotizing way. So these libraries are great for that sort of thing. So I encourage anyone who loves the sound of the Silent Hill soundtracks, and who in general loves the sound of ambient industrial music, someone who's looking for a new palette to make industrial ambient soundtracks to for game or films, and realize that Soundyne really is a massive contributor to this genre of music. They're not the most widely known sample company, but that's because they love the underground stuff. They love the sound design stuff, the stuff that people really look for when they're looking for sounds that they can't describe when making music for action and horror and fantasy music, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely I encourage you to look up all of these libraries that I've mentioned. Get them, because they're not dear. They're very well within reach. They're very fairly priced, and they have a wealth of sound design sounds in there. And many of them, like I said, reminiscent of Silent Hill. So that basically brings us to the end of this guide, and I hope you can use the libraries and tips mentioned to get that Silent Hill sound, and I hope you can enjoy and appreciate the Soundyne libraries for being so unique and atmospheric in their own awesome way. This is personally one of the things that drew me to Soundyne's libraries in the first place, and I've been a fan ever since. There's tons of sounds like this in their catalogue just waiting to be tweaked and used in horror scores, so get out there and try some of them out. They're not even that expensive, so have fun. And just to end this video, I'm going to give you a short track that I made with only the patches used from my special Soundyne Silent Hill folder. I hope you enjoy it, and you can see and hear how these libraries can be used to create really, really emotive kind of industrial ambient sounds. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.